Hi there, Diane from Pixie Belle here. I just want to make a short video to try to explain how to do the cast on for our Dragon Slayer hat. Basically, I do the same or similar cast ons for other ear flap hats. Now this one starts with 2 ear flaps that you would have made already on double pointed needles, and I have this ear flap end on a odd number row, so that you have your public side here. This would be your public side, this would be your private side, or if you want to call it the wrong side, and then this one's the right side. And when you end that ear flap, you're going to be on a reverse stockinette row, so that when you knit across this row, you will continue in garter stitch effortlessly. So just remember that when you are going to work with these ear flaps, you're going to need your tail on the right side, and it's going to need to look like there's little bumps across the top, as opposed to the back side, which looks like there's a gap across the top. So you're going to work with them like this. So let me put those aside for a second, and let's start the cast on. Now the cast on is just a long tail cast on, and you're going to long tail cast on onto your circular needles. And after you do that part, then you'll knit across one of the ear flaps. Then you're going to cast on some more stitches, which will be the back side of the hat, and then you'll knit across the other ear flap. So in the pattern, it calls for a long tail cast on. I'm not going to mention how many stitches, it's in the pattern, but you'll just do your long tail cast on, and I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'll just do a few. Sorry, not really getting it in front of the camera, but you know how to cast on. You don't need me to show you that part. Okay, so let's say that that is the amount of stitches that you're supposed to cast on. Your next part is to bring over this ear flap, and like I said, keep your tail on the right side. You're just going to knit with your working yarn. Here's your working yarn. This is your cast on tail. You don't really need that. You just put that aside for weaving in later. So you're going to take your working yarn and your ear flap, and you're going to knit across your ear flap. And what this does is it puts the stitches on your cast on row, continues your garter stitch, and takes it off the double pointed needle, which you won't need anymore. So you're knitting right along, almost there. Okay, so you don't need this anymore. You're all done with that. Put it aside. So let's look at that again here. This was, you can tighten those up. This section right here was the long tail cast on part that you did. This is your ear flap that you've knit across. Now you need to cast on a few more stitches. There are several different ways to do it. You can do the knitted cast on. I usually just do a quick little cast on. It's really easy. You just sort of do like what you would normally do for a long tail cast on. And you just sort of take your hand like a gun, I guess, and then up by the thumb. I can't do it. There, up by the thumb. Oh, my camera's in the way. Up by the thumb and over, and there's one. And then you'll need however many you need in the pattern. I'll just do a few. There we go. Sorry, it's just hard to do it around with your hands around a camera. Okay, and then you're going to take your other ear flap and just like before, make sure your tail is on the right, and you're just going to knit across using your working yarn. And yes, it does sort of feel a little clunky and odd, but once you get it all together, it's stable on your needle, and then you can just continue with building the crown of the hat. So let's finish going across this. Almost there. Okay, and then you're done with this one. You don't need it. Put it aside. So let's look at this again. This is where your long tail cast on was. Then you knit across this ear. Then you added some stitches for the back, and then you knit across that ear. What you're going to do now is you're going to sandwich the ears together so that you can turn your knitting around, and trying not to add a twist anywhere into your cast on row. Here's my two ends together. You're going to put your stitch marker right there, and you're going to begin your first row knitting into this stitch right here, and that will connect your project. It'll connect your ends together, and you'll just continue your pattern for the rest of the hat. I hope that helps.